and welcome back. For today, I am going to be showing you guys a little bit of an updated Procreate digital drawing sort of routine. I haven't done one of these in probably a year or so, but they are very popular on this channel, so I like to do these every so often to give you guys a little bit of an update. And I think this will be one of the first times that I do a Procreate tutorial where I'm creating artwork with line art. I like to work both with line art and without, but this time around, just in this season, for some reason, I have been really loving line art, so I'll be going over my whole process and the brushes that I'll be using, all of that fun stuff that I know you guys want to know, and let's get into it. Okay, so this is my iPad. It is the iPad Pro 11-inch, and I am not sure exactly what year it's from. I think it's 2022 maybe, but this is the iPad that I use, the tablet that I use to draw on. I also, of course, have my Apple Pencil, and then I do keep a paper-like screen protector on it because I just am not a fan of the glassy, slippery surface of a screen. So yeah, this is what my iPad is looking like right now, stickers and all. And for today, I decided to build off of this idea that I've kind of had going on in my brain for a while, but I recently sketched it out in my sketchbook the other day, and I'm very much into packaging design, as you may or may not know, but I love packaging design, and my love for it extends into my other interests, including video games. I grew up playing so many video games, and I still play a lot of them, so I also really appreciate video game box packaging and such. There are, of course, video games that I have sort of fantasized about existing, and that's sort of the idea that I'm gonna follow today. As a child, I played so many games that either had fishing or were fishing games, like the Nintendo Wii fishing or Animal Crossing, of course. All of the series have fishing, and for me as a kid, that was always like the best part when it came to playing Animal Crossing. Club Penguin even had like a fishing game, so I sort of have this fantasy of a game that could like include fishing but also include a lot of collecting and raising fish as well. So tangent behind the inspiration of today's digital drawing piece. So I use the app Procreate, of course, as you can tell by the title, and it is the app that I have always used to draw digitally on my iPad. I have tried other ones, but Procreate has consistently always been my favorite, so I will forever hold Procreate very near and dear to my heart. But for today, I think I'm gonna do a square canvas, and square canvases do come with the Procreate app, but if you wanted to know the size specifically that I use, this is the size that I have it at and the DPI, just because I tend to prefer a little bit of a higher quality than the default canvases that come included on Procreate, so I wanted to make it a little bit bigger, higher DPI. If you don't know what I'm talking about, essentially, the bigger your canvas, the sort of more pixels are in your canvas, so the higher quality it will look. Same thing with DPI, the higher it is, the higher quality, so that's why I have those settings. And then as far as color profile, I get a lot of questions about that. I have never had to mess with that or worry about that, even when it comes to working with manufacturers personally, so I really don't pay much attention. I just use whatever is default in Procreate. And now let's get a little bit into some of the brushes that I use. So I won't go over all of the brushes that I use because, as you can tell, I have a lot of brush packs and I like to play a lot in Procreate. I like to experiment a lot, so I'm not gonna go through all of them, but as I use some, you guys will see which ones tend to be my top favorite, including ones that are default in Procreate. So let's get into sketching. So I did my initial sketch with this marker roll brush from the inking section of the default Procreate brushes, and I tried to do my sketch with a brush that I cannot get too precious with, and because of the shape of this brush, you can't really get in too many details. You kind of have to be fast and big with your shapes, so that's pretty good for an initial sketch. You don't want to get caught up in it, you just want to block out the main shapes. And the way that I sort of try to compose things is I try to like vary the scale of all of my different forms, and this right now is not perfect, but you know, I have my main subject is pretty large here, I have another large shape here, and then I have like more medium shapes, and then I have to add a few more small ones, probably like one here, maybe one over here. But that's kind of what I was thinking for composition. And now to do a more detailed sketch, I am going to want to use a pencil brush. And I think I'm feeling, let's see, I think I'm going to use this cool pencil from Hey Guidi. I'm also going to change up my color. For now, I'm going to do actually a darker, I'll keep it black for now, and then I might change it later on. Okay, so I basically have my sketch done, and as you could tell, I was like erasing and going back over and over and over a lot of areas, and that was because, for example, whenever I was drawing the fishing line, I didn't really want it to create any tangents, which is essentially when two lines or forms are extremely close to each other without touching. And it's great if you want to create a sense of discomfort in a composition, but for the most part, it's good to avoid those. But this is my cleaned up sketch. I didn't know if I wanted to do something painterly or keep the line art, but I think I'm gonna keep the line art just because the style is a little bit more cute, a little bit more graphic. So I'm gonna keep the line art, and I might mess around with the colors a bit. And now I can open up another layer under my sketch layer, and I'm not entirely sure how I want to fill this in. There's a lot of different ways that I like to fill in artwork, but I think I'm going to use these new brushes that I bought yesterday just to play with, because they're very similar to like a crayon or colored pencil texture. But actually under that layer, I'm going to go ahead and paint a slight underpainting. I'm using this Max U watercolor wash natural brush, and you guys know my favorite color is like a bright neon orange, so I am gonna quickly get this in. And underpainting is a technique that I was taught in traditional artwork back when I was in art school, and underpaintings essentially serve the purpose of creating a more unified color scheme for your painting, but also creating a sort of mood. So if I wanted this to be blue, it might change the mood of the artwork, and I might actually end up doing that at the end. But for now, this is going to be my underpainting, and I'm going to create a layer on top of that and get to drawing and filling in. So I'm not entirely sure of the colors in my final piece yet, so I'm gonna keep my colors separate. So I colored in the skin of the person. Now I'm gonna make another layer, again, just to keep it separate because I'm not sure how the colors will end up. This is the part of the video where I got a little bit silent, and I think I just tend to concentrate a lot when I'm choosing my colors, and I don't really have any specific way that I choose my colors. As you can tell, I have a bunch of palettes on my Procreate app, and that's partially because I'm bad at like cleaning it up and deleting the ones that I don't use that much, but also because like I just I like to experiment with color so much. Color is my favorite part of visual art in general. So I just have a lot of palettes and I like to play around a lot with color. As you can tell, like right here with the little fishies up in the corner, I'm trying to not use the same color of teal for every single fish. I'm like trying to give it a little bit of some variance. But like the main thing for me, at least right now with my color palette, is I am very into reddish oranges, orange tones, and then green tones, green to yellow. I think that's kind of been my color palette for quite a while, and I don't like 100% stick to it. I definitely sometimes like to dive into more cool toned pinks or more purpley blues, but for the most part, this feels like my color palette. I just love green and orange. I don't know why, but I just do. So this is the sort of vibe that I've tried to continue with this piece. And I mean, I'm pretty happy with the colors. I think it turned out great, and I'm using this round marker brush because I like the sort of subtle variants. So I didn't want it to be too painterly because this is a piece with line art, and I didn't want to do too much layering or anything. I wanted to keep it pretty simple, but sometimes filling in with a marker brush like this can really elevate something from being like totally flat, which I'm still a fan of. I still do it sometimes, but elevate something from being totally flat to having a little bit more of this sort of traditional organic look that I've mentioned so many times throughout the video, but it's just what I'm after because I think it gives digital work a lot more character. So that's like what I'm thinking about in this process basically. So I'm getting sort of towards the end. So far, I'm very happy with this. I am going to go ahead and clean up the sides here. And I know maybe for other people who are doing digital work or learning to do digital work, you might be wondering why for a lot of steps I don't choose to use an eraser. I choose to sort of paint over things, and I think that adds a little bit more of the traditional quality to digital painting. A lot of illustrators and artists do this when they paint on a software because sometimes creating something super clean and digitized is just not the goal, and honestly, that's rarely the goal for me. For me, I use my iPad as one tool to create my work, and this is just the sort of style that I tend to gravitate towards when it comes to doing digital work. So I'm not being too precious with cleaning this up. I'm just painting around with the background color, and now that I've basically wrapped up, I am going to group all of these layers, group them, and then I'm going to duplicate that. And I do this because I'm going to do a big edit on the entire thing, and in case I don't like it, I don't want to lose my work, so I'm going to turn that one off, and then I'm going to flatten this one. Let me do a clipping mask, and I've been kind of into this lately where I go to the airbrushing brushes and I do the soft brush, and then I just grab like a really bright color like this magenta, and I sort of gently lay it over a certain area of the work, and you guys will see what I do with it in a minute, but I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to color burn it and turn down the opacity. And I can also kind of like move it around. Okay, but I've been like just enjoying putting like, I don't even know how to explain it, but just like this color overlay just to give things a little bit more dimension like that. And then finally, I like to do a nice halftone layer. You're going to go here to this little magic wand and then go down to halftone and whoops. So I am going to select my layer, go to this little magic wand, and then go all the way down to halftone. And there's a lot of different options. You can choose full color, screen print, or newspaper. Newspaper will always be black and white, but I'm just going to remain on full color. And I'm just going to slide things around. And kind of see, let's see, I'm actually going to do that on another layer. And then overlay that. And it just gives it like a very slight comic book texture. And that's essentially it. This is sort of like my updated Procreate process. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it was helpful. If you really liked this video, I have a ton of other Procreate videos that have evolved, that have sort of shown my evolution throughout my art style over the years, but this is kind of where I'm at right now, and I hope you like it. Maybe I'll make it a sticker, maybe I'll make it a print, who knows? Yeah, that's it for today's little doodle. And that is my finished digital illustration, you guys. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any sort of questions, please comment them down below and I will try my hardest to answer them for you. And if you want to know more, you can also watch my older Procreate videos. I have a bunch, like I mentioned. If you have any requests for Procreate specific videos, you can also leave them down below. But for now, I'll say goodbye and I will see you guys next week.